Hey, it's Terri, your favorite no bullshit artist and business coach, and you're listening to Terri Talks, where we discuss all things taboo, uncovering art industry nonsense, grounding you in confidence and leadership to run an arts business with unwavering power and grit. Hello, welcome to another episode of Terri Talks. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate anyone who takes the time out to listen. Sometimes I feel like I have a manly voice. Sometimes I'm looking a little crazy. If you're watching, sometimes I look cute. And if you're just listening, thank you so much. So I'm tuning in from my bed. I've never really had this kind of amazing light before. So I figured, you know what? Recording in daylight is usually the perfect time to do that. The same thing as taking photos of your artwork in natural light is also kind of amazing. So I saw a post that said, stop sharing what you do during your days. No one gives a shit and no one cares about what you're doing. And yes, I mean, at first I was like, damn, like that's a little bit of a harsh post. But yes, it was a show-stopping post, which is actually what good marketing does, right? It was like a post that hit you in the face that you will not forget, because clearly I am talking about it right now. But it definitely made me think twice, because I'm absolutely, I don't want to say guilty, but I do share my life, both personal and of course professional to a certain extent. I'm like, you know what? Maybe no one gives a shit about my agenda or about my daily tasks. Is it just a filler piece of material that I'm putting in my stories when I don't have shit to share? Like, it's not something that I ever really gave thought to. I liked that people posted it, I guess. I mean, maybe it is a filler. I have no idea. And I still don't know how I feel about that. But I'm like, it definitely made me a little self-conscious about putting my agenda. I'm like, you know what? Do I even care? But I always invite feedback. I'm wondering if you care about what, coaches post, or if you care about what other professionals post, if that has any sort of impact, if that is a good piece of content or not, if that's a good share or not. Hit me up on DMs or comment below. Very, very curious to know what outsiders and different perspectives feel on that. With that being said, just a couple of reminders. I am taking some free consultation calls right now. I have 3 spots. I have not done this in 5 years without the application process. So I wanted to get straight to talking, chat with you, and figure out what your goals are, see if we can clarify and kind of hone in on what exactly it is that you are looking forward to in your arts career. What is the end goal? What do you envision yourself to look like? I have some amazing client wins happen this week that I am just like geeking out over. 3 of them have had semi solo shows, which means like under 3 people. And they are just hitting the mark after mark after mark when it comes to what their 3-year goals are. Shit, that has turned into what their now goals are. And that is a really, really common theme with all clients who onboard with me. So if you're someone who's looking for this type of transformation, you can look for the link in my bio. Also, I will add it in the comment section below, and you can book a 15-20 minute call with me and we can just chat it up. This is a no pressure, non-sales call. Okay. I'm not the mattress company. I'm not a telemarketer. I would never push someone into a situation where both of us are unsure of. And so if we're talking for the first time or meeting for the first time, I like to do a little courting and have a little tea date, and just get to know each other and see if the vibe is right. See if I'm even the right fit for what you're looking for. But I do have those spots open, and I have 2 other spots open for long-term coaching for 2024. And that shit is right around the corner. So let's make moves now and make sure that you're set up for the holiday season, because it's going to be a massive rush. The economy is all over the place. We don't know what's going to happen. Let's prepare for the best. So let's get into this episode, because this weekend there was a shit ton of art events to attend to, and I just only had the capacity to go to one. So, of course, after years and years of going to the other art fair, I made sure that my ass was there. I went on the last day on a Sunday with a previous client of mine. now turned amazing friend. And this was in Brooklyn. This was the Brooklyn location. They do different locations. They have the other art fair in Chicago, LA, London. I forget the other ones. I think that might be it. They're doing two, I think, in LA, but I'm going to check up on that. And I'm actually thinking like maybe I should attend one of the other ones in a different state or even in London. And so that was one of the questions I was asking a lot of the participants who were at this art show, who've done multiple ones. Now, like I said, it's by far one of my favorite art shows. And I call it an art show, not an art fair, because of the level of professionalism. The curation and selection of artists is just top notch. It's never felt like a fair or an expo to me, ever, even since, a couple of years ago when I first went. And I think that's probably why I love it so much, because I've been to expos and art fairs that never felt this way. And now I just skip them and I'd rather go to an opening. So I'm going to give you my honest, as per usual, an unfiltered opinion on what I experienced. There's a few hundred artists there. They participate from all over the world. So people come from, I met people coming from the UK, from Spain, from Minneapolis, from the Ukraine. There were so many different artists that have trekked so far for this type of event, this opportunity. And it's a big investment. They're definitely there's different size booths, there's networking, there's meeting other artists, there's just this visibility that's unlike any other. And that's why these artists continue to participate in something like this. So as we know, like I said, these types of large events are investments. Some people get in, some people don't. Some people are, have done this many times, like I said, but it's costly and time consuming, of course, depending on if you're even traveling outside of New York. Whether you're driving, flying, you need room and board, you need, to really kind of factor in all of those expenses. And especially when you're thinking about like, okay, I've got to stay from Thursday till Sunday, that's a big commitment, right? These are long hours. You're really just hoping that it does what you want it to do, whatever your goal or whatever outcome you have in your mind. So when I go into these types of events, or even an art show, an opening night, I put on two hats. The first hat is, of course, my business hat. I go into business mode like the second I hit the door. How does it look? How does it feel? How am I entering? What's the protocol? What's the process? Is it smooth? Is it kind? What's like, all of that stuff. Like I'm already sort of in that mode. I also love being in that mode, which is why I love being a coach. Number two is I go in as a customer. And I naturally would go in as a customer because I've always bought one piece of artwork from the other art fair almost every single time I've been there. Of course, I'm not walking in with $5,000 cash in my pocket, but I'm definitely looking to invest in a new piece for my collection. So I'm playing the client, customer, buyer, potential collector role as well. So I've got these two hats on, and these are the things that I look for when I'm wearing the business hat, right? I look for pricing comparisons and trends. What is the lowest price with all of the artists put together, the average lowest price, and what is the average highest price? I look for what kind of trends do I see in the aesthetic of the artwork and collections. What are they made of? What maybe topics am I seeing repeat over and over again? I think about like the artist vibe. I'm always one to ask like, so how are you feeling about this turnout? Or have you made sales? Usually you can see if someone's made sales because there's red dots all over the place. I'm wondering about their comfort level and how they feel like the event's been organized. I'm looking at professionalism. How are folks set up? Do they have signage? Is it clean? How is the booth prepared when I approach? And what are they like when I approach? Are they like attacking me? Are they letting me kind of do my thing? Are they reading the room? And I talk a lot about how to approach potential customers, right? And it is a psychology game. It's definitely an intuitive process. So if that's not something that's your strong suit, that is the most important thing, is to do research on who your potential clients are and how they like to shop. And all of that has to do with buyer psychology. And then of course, the layout of the fair, the flow, the floor plan, all that stuff. So that's my like business hat. So here's kind of what my findings told me. And before I actually jump into that, I'm totally getting ahead of myself. I want to just tell you some of the logistics about these booths. So if you're not familiar, if you've never done an art fair before, number one is that these booths go from 2,400 to 4,500. And this is a pretty, I would say this is like an average expense for just the booth. And that's depending on the size. And then, of course, they charge for add-ons, which could be extra lights or, wiring or, how many outlets you might need. I mean, it's kind of gotten out of hand with that shit. And previously in the earlier years where the other art fair was just gaining momentum, that shit did not exist. I mean, these art fairs didn't really exist in this capacity 7 to 10 years ago when I was a full-time artist. And so, yes, it does get expensive. And especially if you're factoring in travel, shipping of artwork. I mean, one person was like, I drove up from Florida with my art. One person had hired a friend to drive their work up, and sometimes you just got to like figure out what's going to be worth your time, worth your money. And of course, getting the artwork shipped with care. So on average, if you figure those numbers, you have to then kind of set a financial goal. And that's going to help you, with those numbers in mind. How much did I actually spend first? And then figure out what you actually have to make up by the end of the fair in order to recoup and profit your investment at minimum. So if you're thinking, okay, I have to make $4,500 to recoup my investment, do you have $4,500 worth of work? Did you come prepared? Are your numbers where they need to be in order for you to meet that minimum? So here were the trends that I found. Okay. And I went around with a list, me and my girl, we went around, we had our little notes up. And number one was I was looking for price. Okay. And I thought overall the prices there were extremely reasonable, accessible, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And I also think that for the most part, a lot of artists were underpricing and then admitting it to me, even on the last day. The lowest that I had seen was like 65 for a small work or print, and 5,200 for large, I'm talking large scale pieces of work with definitely the bells and whistles. That to me was a little shocking. I'm like, even I said that's affordable and I'm not a rich bitch. So when you think about what the location is, we're in the Gowanus, we're near Park Slope, we're near a lot of very wealthy families and people who are living in that area, because the expenses of Park Slope, Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, if you're familiar with Brooklyn and that part of Brooklyn, the rent is insane. So that the sort of economic state in that area is already like okay with these prices. If not, we'll buy multiples, which I was seeing at the fair. And what I noticed also was that even the prints were limited edition, which is amazing because I don't want a print of 100. I want a print of 10. And I actually did. My print was 10 of 10. And I was ecstatic about that. And it was hand printed and just totally like, I was super happy about that. Made on handmade paper from Mexico, and just the whole story was just amazing. And I don't always need the artist to tell me a whole story. I'm okay with quietly buying something that I like. And I am an extremely decisive shopper. So when it comes to me going to a department store, going to a fair, I don't necessarily need to think a whole lot about what I like. I know what I like. I know what my aesthetic is. I know where I probably want it to go. If I can't fit it somewhere, I probably won't buy it. So there's a lot to really consider, especially packaging a buyer. Like when someone buys, what does the packaging look like? That is also something that I looked at. I saw a lot of certificates of authenticity that were gorgeous. Like I'm talking, they were stamped and etched and, gold leaf and signature and like picture, a little like mini picture. I mean, it was the real deal. And you don't have to go to David Werner in order to get that kind of service or professionalism or presentation. And I've mentioned this on other podcasts. Like, the quality of customer service is so important when you're building relationships with art buyers. They will remember what you said. They will remember how you shook their hands. They will remember if you touched them, if you hugged them, if you laughed with them. Like, they will remember all of that. And I remember a couple of people that I had great interactions with, and maybe somebody I didn't have a great interaction with. The second trends that I want to talk about is that I saw a lot of figurative work. I saw a lot of original small works, which I mentioned, and I saw a lot of resin and acrylic prints. So a lot of shiny surfaces, which I thought was really interesting. In the past, there have been a lot more pop art, which I am not like, that's not new for a New Yorker. We're surrounded by pop art every single day. I feel like we are pop art in many ways. And so that was a huge trend when I walked around the fair. So, I'm hoping that this kind of research and really sharing this type of perspective and the way that the lens that I'm looking through the fair as a participant is helpful for all of you, and is just giving you some insight as to, like, is this the right opportunity for me? Is this the right fair for me? Because you could be saying, you know what, that is way too much for me. My work would not do well. I cannot even close to afford that. But if you do the math and you do your homework and you're able to kind of compartmentalize what's worth you sitting out on something like that, or you making, networking with 100 other people. I also mentioned to some of the artists, I'm like, you never know, like, you stay till the very end and you end up having sales after the fact, after the event is over. People go to your website. People don't forget the things that they like. And so you really, like, it's about kind of like seeing everything through to the end. When I have a shitty launch, I see it all the way fucking through. And that is something I learned very early on. I encourage the artists that I work with and my clients to see it all the way through. Shit happens. And there are things out of our control that will often make our lives much more challenging. And sometimes that's the exciting part. Sometimes that's where fear comes in. Sometimes that's where anxiety comes in. But at the same time, it makes us feel fucking alive. And that's definitely why I love what I do. Even when I have a slow financial month, it kind of makes me feel alive again. It keeps me on my toes, and I'm okay with that. Of course, I have other areas of stability, and I've created a life where I will always have backups and I always have plan A through Z. And that's just kind of the way I've always been. But I've always been really someone who has soaked in. I'm a sponge when it comes to just research in life and how people interact. I did have one guy, he was the first booth that my friend and I went up to, and he was a hawk. I think he's probably spotted me from, I don't know if he had a camera on me or an air tag on me, but he jumped on us pretty hard. And he wasn't even like, it didn't even seem like the type of person that would have done that. Some people maybe turn into a different person when they go there. Some people turn it on. Some people get really shy. There's always a middle ground. And that middle ground is when you're just yourself. Truly, that middle ground of selling anything will be when your most genuine and your most, I'm going to use this word, authentic and real self comes out. Whether you're talking to a friend or a stranger, it's like I'm always talking to friends. I'm always talking to family, no matter who you are. My tone doesn't really change. My laughter doesn't really change unless you really fucking piss me off. But that's really, to me, a major selling point is if I feel like asking questions, you're totally there for me. If I feel like shopping alone, you're also understanding my space. And practicing and going to these events and participating in these events is really a crucial part, no matter what scale, whether it's a group show or a huge event with hundreds of people, that you are always going to be ready to be sitting right next to your work, that you're not hiding behind it, but that you're standing side by side. So I hope this was another great episode of Terri Talks for you. And as always, I appreciate you listening and indulging me in all my foul language and inappropriate jokes and all that stuff. But hope to see you on the gram. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. Peace out. Thanks for listening to another unfiltered episode of Terri Talks. I've also got some free resources on my website that will help make your life a lot easier as an artist in business. You can also check out my services or apply to work together. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and sign up for my newsletter for more art industry information. See you on the gram.